Well, if you know me well, you know if you're not early, you are late. Hey, I just want to say right from the start, mobility is great. Stability, I'll talk about stability in a second. Mobility and your ability to move is really number one. If you want that movement quality to maintain and keep going throughout the day, throughout your sport, throughout your life, you have to strengthen the lines that we open every Monday. So I usually don't push things on my audience. I don't think I've ever done this, but at the beginning of a session, but I want to invite anybody who's been joining me for Mobility Monday to just join me for 2 weeks as my guest with my premium group. If you're just new to strength training, I can customize those 2 weeks for you to make sure that you're keeping up or you're not feeling intimidated. But I want you to join me. So there's 2 ways you can do it. You can join me as by going onto your Training Peaks account and inviting me to be added as your coach, Erin at ECFIT or you can go to my website, ECFITstrength.com, and just hit 2 weeks free of premium membership, and I will get you started. But I just wanted to invite you because you've made such a big commitment to moving well, and I just really wanted to see if we could go deeper and go to the next level and provide you the kind of leadership and programming that you might need to maintain and excel in all of the things that you want to do. Okay, so that being said, happy Monday, and let's get going with a little bit of foam roller. So we're going to start with some reactive foam roller. So I have 2 kinds of foam rolling, proactive and reactive. Mondays are about, hopefully most of us who have day jobs, and even a lot of my pros, their weekends are big training. You come into Monday morning, you know you have to recover. Even if you're excited to do more, you shouldn't. You got to keep it easy, unless your coach has you doing harder things. But we initially want to start with some reactive foam rolling, open up the backside of the body a little bit, and then we'll do some proactive this morning as well. So as we hit the left side, lower leg right below the calf muscle. So right below the belly of the muscle. Inside of that would be that soleus muscle, also posterior tib. So we want to just make sure we get all of them. We're just going to windshield wiper through the connective tissue, leading into the Achilles tendon, just below the belly of the muscle. Okay, so just nice and easy. And if you've been training, you're going to feel that maybe a little dull achy. You're going to feel, dull ache is probably a good way to describe it. If it feels pinny and painful, then back off how much pressure you're putting into the foam roller. That's going to be a truth that we kind of live by. Anything that's painful, we just want to back it off just a little bit. Just pull back a little bit. Like if you're standing next to a fire and it gets too hot, you don't just leave the fire, you just back up. So let's use that mindset when it comes to helping ourselves with tissue release using the foam roller. Okay, go back to the left side. We're going to add the right side if that wasn't pinny. Now I can find pinny by adding a little bit of load. And that usually for me is going to be lateral part of the calf. So that's the lateral line. Those are the peroneals. They changed the name of the peroneals. Did you know that? They changed the name to the fibularis, which makes kind of sense because the muscle runs along that bone, the fibula. Let's hit the other side. So we're on the right side, adding a little bit of load from the other leg, and we're just moving very gently through the lower leg. Okay, we're going to stay down here one more time and just hit it with a little bit of flossing. So back to the right side. You're welcome to add load with the other leg if you want. If not, all we want to do is point and flex. We want that good nerve flossing. So now we're actually stretching and moving the nerve that stimulates and mobilizes the foot. So just straight down, straight back. Sometimes people are a little bit surprised. We're going to go 10 or 11 reps there. So right there, got a little bit of pressure just below the belly of the calf, and just point and flex. It's amazing that when nerves get tight, the signaling slows down, and then we don't get the quality of movement we want. The higher the quality of the movement, the more economical the movement is. Good. And it also less compensation. So if the quality of the movement is good, then you're not going to be compensating and you're going to move like nature actually intended us to move. which is what we're after. Okay, so we're just going to sit on the foam roller. Right here, you can find your sits bones. Sits bones, another name for them, ischial tuberosity. They're super, super important to know that little anchor that happens into the pelvis, because that's where all the hamstrings attach. So anybody that's ever had any high hamstring issues or tweaks their hamstrings, just know that this ischial tuberosity and the position of your pelvis is super relevant to making sure we have a healthy back line in the body. Okay, so right there, ischial tuberosities, just spending a little bit of time moving through them. It allows us to get some tissue. It wakes it up. It stimulates the tissue, neural drive. And then we're going into muscle. So just onto the left cheek of the butt and just working it like a massage. So just working through the glute, nice and easy. I definitely am using some weight on my hand to unload, stay away from the fire a little bit. And just nice and easy. Right here, we're getting some nice tissue mobility. And we're also, so I'm just going to do a little cross fiber there. A little bit of tissue mobility, and we get some tissue hydration. And when tissue is hydrated, it's much happier. Okay, let's go over to the right side. Right into that full glute. Unload with the right arm if you need to. We're just working it like a massage. So just through the glute, lateral part of the glute, all the way up to the top of that pelvis, the PSIS. I like you to know the landmarks on your body. I think it's important. So I don't like to use giant words. I like to keep things pretty simple, but at the same time, those landmarks like the ischial tuberosity and where the hamstrings attach, that's important. So I want you to know what that is. Okay, through the left side again. Just hydrating the tissue, a little bit of pressure, and just really assessing the state that the body's in. Reactive foam rolling, and just making sure we don't get tight hips from the training. Good. Or from the sitting. Like I spent a lot of time on an airplane this weekend. Oh, now, I like to start the foam roller right at the top of my lumbar spine. So if you can sit like this, and then just drop, and just kind of start thinking about decompressing your spine. So you want to drop your pubic bone, lift your chest, and just create space on the front side of the body. The second move is going to be to go right below the shoulder blades, hands behind the head. We call that double arm relax. Double arm relax position, and just a nice big extension. And if you want to add a little bit more to that, add a big inhale. And then exhale. Big inhale. So we're working the mobility of the rib cage here, as well as the thoracic spine. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Let's go 3 more. Ready? Big inhale. Open that front side. And good. All right, so now we're going to go into more proactive foam rolling. So the first part of that is going to be into the lat. And the lat is right under the shoulder blades, or excuse me, right under the armpit. And it attaches to the ribs, but it attaches to the front side of the arm. The lat, a tight lat, is going to pull you into internal rotation and make you small on the front side of the body. So we want to start right in that armpit and go ahead, cross fiber across the rib cage. If you're swimming a lot, if you're working on the computer a lot, if you're driving a lot, this group of muscles are going to get tight and start to get stuck to the rib cage. So we want to make sure that that's not happening. And that happens every Monday. And you can foam roll daily, but don't overdo it. Because if right here, like I'm not swimming, I worked on the computer quite a bit yesterday, but I have felt pinny before here, and I don't. And most of my athletes will today, just because I'm not working as hard as they are. So I know what it feels like because I've worked hard before, and I know that some of you are going, Why is that so crazy? But just go ahead and just a little bit of cross fiber, so we're dragging the skin across the ribs. Okay, working through all the rib cage. So we've talked a little bit about what you're looking for, right? So we're looking for dull, achy, or pinny. If it's pinny and painful and herky-jerky in the signaling the body's giving you when you put the foam roller in the area, we need to back off and step away from the fire. Okay, that's just your little bit of review. Okay, next one, we're gonna go chest down on the foam roller. This is, for the ladies, it's gonna be right where the bra line is. And for the guys, think of if you had a heart rate monitor. And if you've never worn a heart rate monitor, guys, think of how horrible it would be to have to wear a bra all the time. That's where you're gonna just go ahead and just drag the skin across the front of the rib cage. And I don't do this one very often, but I do check in. Like I do if those of you that do meditation, you do that full body scan. I scan all the time with my foam roller. So just checking through that whole rib cage to make sure that it doesn't feel pinny. Okay? Now we're going to take it down a notch, and I want you to get that foam roller onto your pubic bone. And that pubic bone, there's a joint there. So we need that pubic bone to not be pinny. So take the foam roller and just work across the pubic bone. And it is the front of the pelvis. And this joint works in relation to the SI joint on the back, the sacroiliac joint. So the pubic symphysis and the sacroiliac joint have to both be free of sticky. You cannot have a sticky pubic bone and expect to be able to decouple your hips when you're running or riding or walking. Okay? So right there, I'm not a big fan of foam rolling the belly of the quads. Why, you might ask? Because it's like I took all of you and I didn't even just put you next to the fire, I put you in the fire. For me, when somebody is in the fire and I just say stand in the fire, that should get better. It never gets better. So we're not going to foam roll the quads today. We'll talk a little bit about that more as we go forward, but we're just going to work the pubic bone, and we're going to put the foam roller away. So that was about 9 minutes of foam rolling. So next we're going to go into the half kneeling 90-90 position. This is a 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle. We're going to go two hands straight overhead. And I want you to be straight over your pelvis. So just stack everything straight over your pelvis. Pull your chin back into your throat. So if I had my hand on the back of your head, you're pushing it back in. Not this way, don't look up. Just straight back, okay? Activating through the neck. Two hands overhead. Reach straight up. Good. Other side. Okay? No, there's no shifting yet. All right? Chin back. Hands up overhead. This is an assessment. How is my stacking in my pelvis? Can I get into neutral? A lot of people are going to be right here with that big lordotic curve. Try and just pull that pubic bone up to the belly button. So I can say it two ways. Pull the pubic bone up or drop your sacrum. See what works for you. Put your head in a killer position. Straight up. Good. All right. So let's go ahead. I'm going to come right at you. We're still in that 90-90 position. Left knee is down. Right knee is up. We're going to go left arm up. There is no tension, so we are not shifting forward yet, okay? All we're going to do is let the hips shift to the left, and the top arm reaches across the midline, and then come back. This is initiated with a hip shift to the left. So we load this lateral line. Load that lateral line. That's your IT band, TFL, glute med, and we just do that little hip shift. Hip shift left, reach over to the right, and you might get it through your oblique, you might get it through your hip, and you might get it down into that IT band. Okay, same thing, right leg down, there's no shift forward, we're going to shift laterally. Okay, so right here, right arm up, left arm shift, or excuse me, shift to the right, right arm reaches across the midline, and we just do that nice big side bend. 2, hips go to the left, that's the first movement. 3, 4, and 5. So we are loading the lateral line. We are loading the IT band, the TFL, tensor fasciae lata, which is way up here. We're also loading the glute med, which can get very tight in runners and cyclists. Okay, the next move I want you to do is we want to get into this anchored position. So that means we're going to take the feet, we're squaring up the outside. I got my socks on today because it's freaking cold in Boulder, Colorado today. I usually am barefoot. So we want to square up the outsides of the feet, just parallel. This is another one of those, if some is good, more isn't better. I do not want you like that, okay? So we're squaring up the outsides of the feet. The knees have a bias towards the midline. So we're not driving them in. They're just kind of facing in a little bit. And we're going to push the hips back and put the weight on the heels. Now we're going to be able to push the hips back even further because we're going to push the hands to the front and just come straight back out of that. Do not go for glory. Do not go for a 10 out of 10. All I want you to do is set your lower body, knees biased towards the midline, push your hips back a little bit, and then just add the weight of the arms and come right back out of it. We're going to do 10 of those, okay? So we're working the hip hinge, and we're working the counterbalance of the arms. And yes, this is called a founder from foundation training. I can't stand it, how much I love the work with foundation training, which is I will keep going forward with my formal relationship with Eric Goodman and foundation training and their team, because the education is so important. And it's one of those things that I'm never gonna, I don't know, I just have a problem these days with people not learning the correct way. They just take it from the internet. They see me doing this and then they go teach it to a group. I think you can comfortably do this with me. I think you will definitely learn and understand. But if you really wanted to teach it to other people, I think it's really important that you keep pushing your hips back, keep pushing your hands forward, that you attend one of the formal trainings. It's really, really worth it. Okay, elbows are down, hands are high. And just shake that out. Every single time we push our hips back, we are now loading and activating the back line of the body. So let's go ahead and open up the front line of the body a little bit more. And we're going to do that with a split stance. So this hip is already open. And we're just going to raise both hands overhead, just like that. And then we're going to take this hip and rotate it to the midline. The upper body is going to follow. So we're activating the right, if the right leg's in front, we're activating and mobilizing the right hip with this rotation. The upper body is following the hip. And you can see I'm falling this way. We want to take this lower leg, drive into the big toe, stabilize, there's your stability, and come back. All right. Little forward lean in this is going to help you get into that hip a little bit. So I'll give you a little bit of side view here. So split stance, right hip is open now, 2 hands overhead. From right here, we don't want to be in the back seat. So just lean forward a little bit. Right hip across, left big toe into the ground. Okay? 2 hands nice and high. If this feels uncomfortable, just bring your hands down. Okay? If you can handle this, handle it. Left big toe into the ground. Right here, we're getting the hip decoupling. We're starting to open up the SI joint. It's definitely moving. If you take your right hand and just put it on your sacrum, as you do this rotation, you're going to feel how it's moving. It's very subtle. It shouldn't move that much. Okay, let's go one more time each side. We'll add a little bit of intensity to that. Split stance. Right hip back. Oh, just did that one. Split stance. Left leg back. Now we're just going to push the hips back, drop the chest forward, come back, okay? Lift the chest, push the hips back, come back. So now we're loading those hamstrings into that ischial tuberosity. Just push the hips back, come right back up. There's no rotation in the hips. Chest up, eyes up. Good, we'll just do about 6. Left leg, right leg back. Pull the ribs off the hips. We're pushing the hips back, and you're gonna feel that ischial tuberosity. You're gonna feel the hamstrings load and lengthen and get hard and like they're ready to work. Good. Push the hips back. Push the hips back. This is your hinge. This is your hip hinge. If it feels like too much, just shorten the range of motion, okay? Now, we're gonna go right leg in front of left. Take a big breath, pull the ribs off the hips, lean forward. Now, if I had a plumb line, my nose would be 6 inches in front of my lead toe. And from right there, you're just gonna rotate that back hip down and across. And if you put your hands on your hips, you can feel how your hips now, this hip is dropping. This hip is staying stable. And when you run, every time you land, you want your hips to be stable. But if they're weak, they're gonna fall out, they're not gonna decouple, and you're gonna rotate this way through your hips instead of this way with your hips, okay? So let's go left leg back, right leg in front. Take a big breath, pull the ribs off the hips, look over the cliff so that that plumb line is about 6 inches in front of your toe. We're gonna rotate back so that that left hip is going to the midline, and now the left arm is reaching out in front, and you're gonna feel the right glute switch on, okay? So it's just look over the cliff, hip rotates, add the weight of the arm, that whole back line, lateral line, loads. This is how we get neuromuscular activation. We force the body around that right leg, push the hips back, and kind of build this beautiful single leg stability on the right side with no or very little compensation, okay? Left leg in front of right. We're working on the left leg stability and sequencing. Sequencing is how your muscles, how your body stabilizes itself. Right leg back, nice big breath, look over the cliff, rotate across first, and you can see that that nose is forward, and come back. 2. Now we're gonna add the weight of the arm, right hip across, and as my arm goes forward, you can kind of see how my hip shifts back. Load into the big toe on the left leg. One more. And good. All right. One more invitation. Join me for 2 weeks with my premium group. I will customize for the group that's just coming in so that we don't overwhelm you, because my premium group's been going pretty hard for 9 weeks. Erin at ECFIT Strength, you can just shoot me an email, I'll make it happen. But most importantly, that was a pretty advanced session of mobility and understanding the hips need to decouple, the back line needs to be in place and ready to hold you up nice and tall. I'm looking forward to 2024. I know I taught a lot today and I talked a lot, but hopefully you're having an amazing week of training. Aloha.